This week, Virgin Boy finds himself transported to a completely different world, where he is forced to battle monsters and goblins just to survive each day. Hera is always alone, just as he was back in his real world, where he was a total lonely loser and virgin with no riz. In a future as dark as my black hole, nobody ever noticed him because he never fit in with any of the school cliques, which were divided into groups like Andrew Tate followers, the school hoes, disgusting delinquents, smelly and sweaty nerds, the Segas, and the good girls, with level 100 Gat resting his head on the desk. Haruka knows there's no place for someone like him in this world. When suddenly his classmates start acting like fools as they watch a glowing golden circle appear in the classroom. Being a virgin weeb, like many of them, Haruka instantly recognizes this as an Isekai summoning, just like in the mangas he's read. But he's too lazy to deal with it. He tries to walk away only to find the door sealed tightly with Flex Seal. Even with a lot of damage, it won't budge. The magic circle expands, engulfing the classroom as students begin getting sucked in. Having watched too many Tom Cruise movies, Haruka tries to escape through the air ducts, but his luck runs out as the circle catches him and drags him into a white, endless void. He glances around wondering where on earth his entire class is and waits for an ugly-ass king with a level 10,000 Gad daughter to greet him. Nothing happens. Soon, he notices an old-ass man running toward him, attempting to communicate in sign language. For some reason, somehow, Haruka manages to understand that all his classmates were summoned earlier, transported to a different world. After selecting a special ability, the old man informs him that he also needs to pick a skill. But out of the 50 options, 43 have already been taken, leaving no overpowered skills left. Realizing he'll have to settle for a lame-ass skill to survive in this new world. His hopes are dashed. Further, when he sees that even your mom has better abilities than the remaining ones, frustrated, he shakes the old man like a maraca, demanding he get better skills, or learn to count properly, and to stop summoning people if he doesn't have enough abilities. The old man finally snaps, shoving him aside and saying that someone is unlucky, as him wouldn't survive even with the best skills. In frustration, he gives Haruka all the leftover abilities and pushes him into the new world. When Hera turns around, he's stunned to find himself in the middle of a vast forest. Scared and alone, he spots a pouch on the ground and picks it up, discovering it has unlimited carrying capacity. It's a decent item, but unfortunately everything inside is as basic as my girlfriend. He quickly performs a drip check and tries to review his stats, but out of nowhere, 2 dice appear on the screen. He rolls them and both land on M. He has no clue what it stands for, but the stats prompt him to assign everything to a single skill. Unsure if M means minus or something else, he plays it safe and bets everything on the luck stat. To his shock, M actually stands for maximum and his luck stat is now maxed out. He also learns that, due to his extreme loneliness and being a virgin, God has granted him a special pity ability that lets him tame wild creatures. He looks around to see if any of his classmates are nearby, but no one's around. So he decides to move forward and build his own house, and inspired by the dudes on YouTube who build homes out of dirt. As he walks through the forest, he begins to feel uneasy, worried that a giant monster might jump out at him, or maybe it's your mom. To ease his fears, he pulls out another skill item called contact lenses. To his amazement, as soon as he puts them on, he gains the power to see the stats of different things, an incredibly useful and powerful ability. He realizes that these skills are far more valuable than their names suggest, and continues on happily scanning his surroundings for herbs that boost health and venom mushrooms and more. With his bottomless bag, he's able to gather as much as he wants to sell his medicine for a big profit. After rehydrating like a true Sigma, he presses on through the forest. Eventually, coming across the entrance to a cave, he prays to God, hoping there are no creatures inside, and then enters to search for anything useful. The cave quickly becomes pitch black, so he pulls out his lantern and magic tent, which he can easily set up to live peacefully. By the time M falls, Haruka feels more comfortable than Bear Grylls as he gathers sticks and, using his temperature, magic ignite to fire that will also keep the beasts away. He checks his stats again, noticing that several of his skills have leveled up, but he's too exhausted to review them, so he drifts off to sleep. The next morning he wakes with a start and scans the area to ensure he's still safe, realizing his monster repelling methods work flawlessly. Feeling hungry, he lights another fire, pulls out a pan and sawed some mushrooms and beef jerky. The meal turns out surprisingly tasty, and he wonders if he could settle here as a buff farmer. But he remembers he has no protein powder. So he heads out of the cave again, discovering a patch of herbs that could help him build muscle. While gathering the herbs, he hears a ruckus behind him and spots a group of foolish goblins scrounging around. Panic sets in, and he hides in some bushes as the stupid-ass goblins start singing. ski bay toilet. That's where Haruka draws the line, grabbing his staff. Before the nonsense gets to him, he wonders if his stick will be enough to handle the two goblins. Just to be cautious, he puts on some gear and then rushes toward them, hitting one of the goblins on its big-ass head. This triggers something inside him, and he starts pounding the poor creature until it's knocked out cold on the ground. The other goblin gets frightened but still charges at Haruka. Luckily for Haruka, the goblin's moves are predictable, so he dodges the attacks easily before smacking it on the head and finishing it off with a small magic blast. Afterward, he washes his face as the sun sets and decides to head home, feeling like he's done enough for the day. Once back at his cave, he roasts some mushrooms like a total hobo and checks his stats, only to see that several abilities have leveled up. This is great news, but he can't help wondering what the goblins would do to him if they found him alone in the empty cave. He quickly shakes off the scary thoughts and warms up with some exercise before heading to bed. The next morning, he wakes up to mushrooms for breakfast again, who's already getting tiresome. He wonders if he can find some meat, but quickly remembers how the vegans in his class would roast him alive if he said that out loud. He gets up, boosts his stats with some magic, and heads out for the day with his trusty wooden staff in hand. Soon he finds something on the ground, only to discover it's yet another worthless mushroom. Frustrated, he tosses it to the ground and resumes searching for meat, as if it grows on trees like a total virgin. Before long, he regains his composure and realizes he should focus on honing his magic abilities. He powers up his stacks once more and then starts sprinting through the forest to his amazement. His speed has multiplied several times, making his body feel incredibly light and agile. Even his attacks appear faster and stronger, so he decides to test this out on a nearby group of goblins. Without hesitation, he leaps into battle, striking the first goblin with his wooden weapon before knocking the second one on the head. This, however, angers the goblins, especially the muscular one who picks up a club. Harem, not wanting to risk it, hides in the bushes and slips away. Unnoticed, he decides he's had enough for the day and heads back to his cave, reflecting on the day's events before starting some DIY projects, like putting together an IKEA table. After a few attempts by the next morning, he's gotten pretty skilled and successfully assembles a stool and a coffee table on his own. With his newfound craftsmanship, he tightens security, building a wooden gate at the cave entrance to ensure no one can enter without permission. That night, he heads out to hunt his small bunny, unable to go much longer without meat. Fortune favors him as he spots a rabbit darting through the forest and manages to catch it like a wildcat. Grinning like a predator at the thought of the meal, he suddenly senses the presence of others nearby and shifts into alert mode. He looks around, to his surprise and disappointment, sees the group of delinquents walking toward him. This really frightens him because he doesn't want to get mixed up with them. So he hides behind some bushes and quietly walks away. But then his instincts kick in again. He quickly uses his special vision, which allows him to see everything around him. And to his surprise, he notices the thoughts heading his way from one side while the typical Andrew Tate fans and the smelly nerds approach from the other. He decides he wants nothing to do with any of them. When he suddenly spots the vegan girls, led by the class president, he lets the bunny go and considers whether he should meet the class president, since she's always been kind to him and he's known her since first grade. But he stops himself with pure determination, thinking about how great it feels to be in control of his own life, and decides that he will conquer the world on his own terms. Before that, he needs to hide from the bully. So he dives into the bushes. One of them hears a noise and heads toward it, leaving Haruka hoping the guy won't come any closer. Fortunately, a rabbit suddenly darts out of the underbrush, startling the bully, and they all convince themselves it was just the animal. Although Haruka doesn't want to confront them, he stays nearby to eavesdrop. They aren't saying anything important, just the leader talking about the vice class rep's melons, while the others start naming their own favorites. This reminds Haruka how those girls always handle bullies like these. The leader then annoys Tanaka, an outsider, asking if the girls' skills will help with their plans, making Haruka think they're using him like a Google search. The leader jokes that the vice rep is waiting for him and soon after it leave for good. Harem assumes the whole class is upstream, but he knows solitude is best. His main problem is that he's only gathered mushrooms. So far, though his loner skill has leveled up from avoiding interactions, still he's only at level 3, probably because he has an advance, his master of none and ventriloquist skills, which he doesn't even fully understand. Without delayed, he tries to figure out these abilities. Master of none likely means he can't focus enough to master any one thing, but he can do a bit of everything at a mediocre level. As for ventriloquism, it seems like a useless talent, as if it means he's just a puppet for others. Regardless, he drops it for now and eats to clear his mind, even if it's just more mushrooms. On the STH morning, Haruka is jolted awake by the sound of metal clashing and male shouts. He assumes it's the delinquents again, but discovers the nerds battling goblins. Amused, he wonders if he should help, though they don't seem to be winning. Using his evaluation skill, Haruka checks their status and sees they're all level 16. Sorcerer of Sync, Guardian, and Shinobi. Far from useless like him. This reminds him of his class, full of talented students, and he still doesn't understand why he was grouped with the Obak nerds. Just as he's about to leave, his perception skill detects two Babins sneaking up on the Mirids. Remembering their kindness, Hoka takes out the enemies. He greets them afterward, and soon they're walking together thanking him for his help. But Haruka, having been isolated for so long, is unsure how to respond to their gratitude. He leads them to his cave, where they're impressed by the structure he built alone. Haruka strikes up a conversation, asking what happened to the rest of the class and why they were in the forest at that hour. The Ends trouble to respond, so the sorcerer explains that it all started when they were teleported into the forest. Some scratched their heads, others pinched themselves thinking it was a dream, while a few cried. The nerds, however, were the most at ease in this new world. The bullies, sensing this, demanded answers about such worlds threatening violence. Amid the chaos, the class rep tried to calm everyone down, but when a goblin horde appeared, even the toughest delinquents couldn't hold their ground. The nerds, though, stood firm. The Guardian with his shield, the Shinobi with his katana, the Sing with a hammer, and the Sorcerer with his magic. Eventually, even the bullies and athletes joined the fight and the goblins were defeated. After the battle, the class rep suggested they find a safer spot, leading them to a riverbank. The nerds used their skills to establish a survival plan and set up camp, while the class reps assigned tasks like keeping watch, cooking, and gathering supplies. This allowed the class to function as a team until the popular girls refused to gather firewood. Their rebellion spread and soon only the class reps, the nerds, and a few others remain at the camp, although some were still unmotivated and bored with the routine, causing them to slack off. A goblin attack hit the base. The nerds, already swamped with work, had to fight off the enemies on their own. They won. The cost was exhaustion. The nerd sorcerer realized they had to stick together and improve their skills to survive. As the goblins weren't the only threat, so were the bullies. The sorcerer had seen the bullies forcing another student to give up skills like charm, which probably controls people, and puppeteer, which hints at controlling others. Like puppets, the Mirids weren't just leveling up for outside threats, but also to deal with dangers within the camp to keep an eye on things. The otaku followed the bullies into the forest and overheard a plan to create a harem at camp. They quickly warned the class representative, who decided to level up and face the bullies head-on. However, the bullies had recently mastered the charm and puppeteer skills, making things more difficult. Despite this, with great bravery, the class rep confronted the bullies. Unexpectedly, the nerds swiftly took them down and used magic to seal their sinister abilities with their Harem plan, exposed the bullies, flood the camp, but promised revenge. Chaos spread, and in the end the camp was burned to the ground. The popular girls blamed the nerds, accusing them of starting the conflict with the bullies. Most of the students followed the crowd and blamed the otakus. A class representative, along with a few others who didn't believe the nerds were guilty, tried to defend them, but wasn't enough. As a result, the nerds were kicked out of camp. When Haruka heard the story, he was moved to tears and hugged his friends for all they had gone through. He even offered to host mushroom parties so they could chat and eat together. Hera spent the night with his friends, realizing that having company wasn't so bad after all. He said goodbye to his classmates, and one asked if he would join them and follow in the river to become adventurers. Hara admitted he wouldn't want to team up with anyone else, but in his usual mysterious manner he declined and told them to go on without him. As he watched the nerds leave, Haruka reflected that his weak skills would only slow them down. He decided to find the class reps to get to the bottom of things. During his search, he encountered a wolf monster, got bitten, but defeated it with a blow to the head. By nightfall, he reached his class's destroyed campsite and used his detection ability to find human footprints crossing the river. Following the tracks, he spotted the popular girl in the distance and thought he should have stayed home to enjoy roasted mushrooms. He was about to leave when the most popular girls confronted him. Kira tried to run, but when he heard one of them say "please stop," he paused to see if that's really what she said. The popular girl quickly explained they were looking for the nerds to apologize, realizing how serious their mistake had been. After all, they were only alive because of them. Haruka found it odd that these spoiled girls wanted to apologize, since that never happened in the original world. Still, he told them it was impossible to catch up with the nerds. One of the girl insisted on hearing what he knew. So Haruka challenged them with hard questions. Could they escape the forest? Could they face monsters? Were they really going to find their saviors and apologize? Or would they just give up? His blunt words made the girls cry like frightened children, afraid they'd die in the endless forest. They begged Haruka to teach them how to survive and make things right. Afterward, Haruka noticed his subjugation ability had activated the three girls as subjugated popular leader. Popular girl A and popular girl B, like it or not, he was now bound to them by fate. As the sun rose after hours of walking, the three girls trailed him like ducklings, following their mother. Their clueless behavior and vacant stares were driving Haruka crazy, especially as he feared the moment they'd start slaying wolf monsters and delivering their crystals, like loyal pets returning a toy. At least, that's how he imagined this subjugation ability worked. In the middle of these frantic thoughts, he noticed one of the girls was hurt, so he offered her a healing potion. Instead of using it correctly, she poured the entire potion on him, thinking that was the command. In that moment he realized if the class rep found out what happened to the girls, she'd go berserk, and he couldn't face her with her authority. As Haruka was figuring out how to break the spell, the class rep appeared behind him shouting for his attention. Meanwhile, the bullies were planning to target the girls of the old campsite, but had other issues to handle. First, Haruka tries to call the class representative by her name but can't remember it, which really annoys her. She loudly expresses her frustration. Soon the other class reps catch up out of breath, and their leader asks what happened to the preppy girls, since they don't look well. Even Haruka is unsure, though it seems his subjugation skill left them looking like zombies. The class rep asks if he used the skill on them, and Haruka reluctantly nods. She gets upset, reminding him that the skill is only for monsters. Haruka explains it was an accident, but the girls doubt him, giving him cold stares that nearly freeze him. He manages to escape the tense moment, but the girls demand he stay put frustrated. Haruka wonders if this was the quiet life he was promised in this new world. The leader of the reps shakes Shimazaki, the head of the preppy girls, until she snaps out of it. The class rep then calls Haruka back to gather everyone and figure things out left alone. For now Haruka considers practicing his house expansion skill, maybe even building a base. But when he activates the skill he ends up tragically buried in the ground with only his neck above the surface. The class rep has a pull Haruka aside, so he can explain everything Shimazaki told her. According to Shimazaki, Haruka came to help everyone, prompting the girls to bow in gratitude. Despite this, Haruka says he wants to go home, but the girls scold him, reminding him of his promised help. Confused, the class rep asks what he means by going home. Cut explains that he built his own house after being thrown into this world. The girls are excited by this revelation, and the leader immediately calls for a new strategy meeting, leaving Haruka out once again. The class rep asks how many people can stay in his house, and Haruka says that by squeezing, about 240 could fit, especially if they don't mind using the bathroom and kitchen. The girls are fascinated that his house even has rooms like that, and the leader is shocked. It's a mansion in the middle of nowhere. Encouraged by her friends, the leader politely asks if they can stay at his house for the night. Haru, stunned at the thought of hosting so many girls, can't say no and leads them to his home, using his skills to guide them through the dark. After a long walk, the girls are exhausted, unable to keep up with his fast pace. Once they catch their breath, they realize they've arrived at a mansion in the middle of nowhere. The discovery excites the group of girls more than anything they've experienced in this harsh new world. Haruka finds it odd that the girls seem to like his house even more than the nerds did. It's now time to show them around, and as he points out the bathroom, most of the girls rush ahead to bathe, tossing their clothes in the air. As they go, Hiro watches, amazed at how wild they become after their time in the forest. With the house now full, Haruka sets up a tent outside for some privacy. Just as he starts enjoying the solitude, the class leader interrupts to thank him for his support. Since the boys left, the girls have been anxious, but now they're much more relaxed. It's surprising how much a nice room, good food, and a warm bath can lift spirits. Despite this, she confesses that she hasn't led her group well through all the chaos. Haruka reassures her, saying she's done enough, even if she can't do what Oda and the others can. He explains that the nerds were built for this kind of situation and knew exactly what to do, while the rest of them are just trying to survive. This comforts her somewhat, though she still wonders if Haruka is the real outlier for being able to build a mansion in the wilderness. Her sharp observation catches him off guard. After wishing him good night, she leaves, and the girls finally get to enjoy a proper bath and a good night's sleep in the mansion. The class rep ends up with the least comfortable spot, but she's content sitting quietly in his corner, while Haruka is lost in thought about the girls, and he senses it's going to be a long night. At dawn, a girl apologizes for waking him and tells, "And breakfast is ready," startled. Haruka doesn't recognize her and asks for another half-hour of sleep. The girl teases that he doesn't seem like he's getting up anytime soon. Feeling awkward, he changes the subject by asking what's for breakfast. She says it's mushrooms and grilled fish, which excites him, since he's been eating only mushrooms for days. As they step out of the tent, he accidentally bumps heads with her. She recovers while Haruka skips the apologies and dives straight into the fish with the first bite. His love for the fish becomes undeniable. The girl speaking for her group asks if Haruka lives near a stream. He admits he does, but has only been eating mushrooms because the fish are too quick and smart to catch. Curious, he asks if they have an easier method. The gals show him their technique by using electricity and instantly kill the fish at the river. Amazed, Haruka asks her to do it again, and when she gathers the electricity in her hands, he captures the spell using his packaging skill. Applying himself to the river, Thrill decelerates catching fish for the first time, and to his surprise discovers he's developed his own electric magic. Using his packaging ability, he can capture any elemental magic and recreate it uniquely. The girl remarks that this seems a bit overpowered, and Haruka agrees, saying it's likely a mix of his packaging skill and his master of none ability. He still recalls how he got the worst powers, while everyone else received the best, and controlling the electric magic almost made him wet himself with excitement. Later, Haruka meets with the leader of the girls and asks if they decided their next move. She explains they haven't reached a consensus, but are likely heading to the city. Haruka assumes they want to catch up with the MS, and they confirm they need to apologize. The leader stresses the importance of leveling up before the journey, which Haruka agrees with and offers to help. The leader thanks him, but clarifies their goal isn't to pursue Oda and the other nerds. Haruka feels a bit let down, as he would have enjoyed seeing a showdown between the girls and the nerds. Still, they all gather to begin their training. Haruka asks everyone's level, and those in front reveal they're between level 16 and 21. He's stunned. Even he's only at level 7, true to his word. He quickly spots 3 kobolds lounging in a nearby bush and asks the girls to handle them, since the monsters are only half their level. The girls begin stretching and getting ready for the fight, but when the time comes, they're easily defeated. Haruka criticizes their performance, calling it pathetic, while the girls grumble that no one warned them the creature would bite later. Instead of enjoying peace in his tent, Haruka watches as the girls gather inside to review the battle. Before long, they leave feeling more confident, except for the purple-haired girl who had woken Haruka earlier. She stays to apologize, explaining she had only been testing him because she was nearly captured during an earlier attack by the boys, leaving her traumatized. She wanted to see if Haruka would hurt them, but he proved otherwise. She adds she'll wake him tomorrow for breakfast. The next morning, Haruka starts his day with fish, while the girls train for a rematch with the kobolds. After training, some girls are too exhausted to stand, and others fake being sick to avoid fighting. But those who pushed through managed to defeat the kobolds after their victory. They treat the creatures like pet dogs. The leader tells Haruka they're ready to head to the city with him, but he never agreed to go later. Haruka cautions the leader that they cannot predict what awaits them, so they must remain alert and stay focused. That night, in the heavy rain, a student sprints, desperately attempting to flee from someone chasing him. After tripping over a stone, he crashes to the ground, is quickly captured. He cries out that he lacks the power the man seeks, but the pursuer disregards him and strikes. If you're enjoying the journey of this series, please hit that like and subscribe button and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss any updates. All of your support helps me to keep bringing more high-quality recaps.